It's the freeze dried creme brulee
powder.
It's like,
Literal powder.
dude, say it wasn't great. Hello and welcome to episode 106 of the Green Outdoors Podcast. My name's Kyle.
I'm AJ.
I'm Ryan.
Jeff isn't here today, but that's okay, because it's okay.
He's focused.
But even so, I was kind of laughing because when I was thinking about Jeff not being here today, it reminded me of this video I saw on Michigan Outdoors Facebook. Shout out to them. It was a very interesting video, and it reminded me of a bunch of cool people with one weirdo, and that's what tied Jeff together. But there was a trail cam video of all these coyotes running by, and in the midst of the coyotes was just one dog trotting with them, like he is part of the group, part of the clan. Not clan.
And
they're not clan.
Just a pet?
Yeah.
Part of the pack.
He had a collar on, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like he had a collar on. But for sure, a pet dog.
Had no idea coyotes were so accepting.
Brown in color. Maybe there's like a hazing process like what we do, where none of the coyotes in that group have a second left toe on their left foot. Yeah.
Painful.
Hey, you want it in.
Yep.
You want it in.
Yep.
You want it in. AJ took off too just to show his loyalty.
You know how
Always.
coyotes get all nasty and gross into the warmer weather? Like you always
Mangy.
say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
They're like any dog, they summer coat.
So,
winter coat.
that along with the more they're going in and out of their den, I learned this the other day. The more they're going in and out of their den, it's called den rub. So that's
a good
why
band
you
name.
get the wear and tear spots from coming in and out, in and out, in and out, rubbing on the walls. It slowly peels the hair away.
It's like narrow in there.
Well, yeah, they're just crawling through a tiny hole into the ground, and as they're getting out, the hair on their chest gets real light because it's in the wintertime. They're not coming in and out as
They're
much.
scooting.
Yeah,
I see.
We got our little
It's
coyote
interesting.
Inu here today.
Yeah.
He's like,
he's vicious.
he's shoving up on my leg like, you better be petting me. Yeah, I also, when I was talking about it, because this is like a key point with coyote hunting, you're not really, people don't really hunt them in the summer that much unless they're desperately just trying to get rid of them because their fur isn't as nice. It's like that January, February, March where their mating season, their fur is really, really, really thick. It's the time of year when you really want to be hunting them because it's going to give the best yield as far as fur goes for utilizing it, for making your bandanas and your loincloths and
Nice.
that sort of deal. But in Michigan, a lot of coyotes too, not to be confused with den rub,
Nice.
is mange, which is a disease, and it makes their fur come off. There is nothing uglier than a bald cat.
Yeah, they're like.
Sorry, he's growling at me because I didn't pet him. But there's nothing uglier than a bald cat. I don't even
Coyotes
want
are
to touch
dogs.
it. Yeah, I get it.
I'm
I'm just saying,
kidding.
a bald coyote would be
Canine.
gross, but nothing's worse than a bald cat.
I've never felt one.
It looks like
A
a
bald cat?
ball
I haven't.
sack.
Hairless cat.
I don't know that I've ever been around one.
I haven't.
They look like balls.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Gross.
Mr. Bigglesworth.
So we had to bring Millie in. I know I brought this
A
up.
Millie. This is his dog.
This is our puppy.
New pup.
Yeah. And because she was acting like she was dying.
She was sitting there underneath my desk, and she was going she was doing the thing that animals do right when they're about to pass. She was like, head was getting heavy, and I'm like, yo.
It
Hey,
was freaky. I did not like it at all. So I brought her in, and turns out she just ate something that made her stomach upset, and she's a dramatic dummy.
Female dog.
Yeah.
Did they take her temperature by chance?
They
'Cause
did.
I watched Dr. Dolittle on the plane the other day, and there's like, just swallowed it.
We know what happens there.
They did. Swallowed it.
The butt just swallowed it. It's from Dr. Dolittle. He's like,
I was gonna say because they didn't.
doctor,
They didn't lose it.
I don't want to tell you your business, but I think
you may have lost your
thermometer. He goes, your butt just swallowed
They
it.
did. She did. I feel bad. I have to hold her, and she's looking at me all sad, like, "What is this?" Pretty sad. Anyhow, they test her blood sugar. They did an X-ray on her, all that stuff, and that's how they found out she had eaten something. I don't know what. I've been going through her poopies trying to figure it out, and I have no clue what she ate.
I had corn. Mine's a little bit more obvious.
You go through yours too?
Yeah.
Daily.
But they also hydrated her, and when I got home, Jenna told me, who's my wife and a nurse, so that's how she knows about this stuff, that dogs to hydrate them, you don't need to put an IV into their vein to hydrate them like humans.
Mm-hmm.
You can just poke under their skin, and it's called subcutaneous fluids. So you can hydrate them subcutaneously, where you're just slowly putting water in under their skin. I was thinking about how lucky we are that dogs you don't have to put it in a vein. Otherwise, you'd have to knock them out so they don't sit there and pull it out. So you can just put it. They usually do it in between their shoulder blades on their back.
They pinch the skin.
Pinch the skin, poke it in,
Yep.
and then hydrate them that way.
Mm-hmm.
I had to babysit the dogs next door when I was a kid. They had 2 Yorkies, and one of them was diabetic. And that pinching the skin behind the neck, you like did that, and that's where you had to give him his insulin. And man, it never felt like you were either giving him enough or like you know. Well, no, it's like
So I always gave him more.
it's like he needs it. No, it's like when you do it, it's like such a little amount.
Yeah.
And then like you put the needle in, and you're like,
Are you
don't
feeling
do it at
this?
an angle. It's got to go straight. It's got to this, and you like put it in. You're like, you good?
Hope
like
I did it right.
Yeah, like, and they're like, oh, and if you gave it to the wrong dog and they look similar, it would kill it. So you gotta be
gosh.
really. It's like
Really?
yeah, it
That
wasn't
sounds
a
terrible.
pleasant experience feeding them. They were like
We're letting the kid next door. You doing it?
yeah. Well, I mean,
Jeez.
better than one across the street. I'll tell you that one right now. But no, they had they like fed him like these funny little disgusting meals with like chicken necks in it. I remember because they like would leave pieces of bone in there on purpose, like the chicken neck or whatever. It was like good for them, like in their weird, diet of like
Yeah.
expensive things, and it was
Their
all.
flex meals.
It's like in this it was in like this plastic wrap, and I remember like when they get the bone because they would eat as soon as you put it down. They're like,
Yeah.
and they're like working on the neck, and it was just so weird.
Well, but healthy lifestyle, I guess.
Yeah, but yeah, well, he's diabetic. You understand?
Yeah.
This sounds diabetic dog.
It's
Yeah.
like-
know
I remember when I
diabetics.
gave it. I could do the same thing when I give Isaac his though. I'll grab him by the pinch of the neck and
He goes,
but it just never feels. It's just such a small amount. You're like, no way that's impactful.
Well,
You
now it makes more sense why when your dog comes back after they do like her back was all wet. I'm like, no, now I get it.
Herbs.
They're hydrating her, and I just thought that was the most wild thing that they could become hydrated like that.
We had this kid in my high school. His name is Alex Gar, and I've talked about. I don't think I've ever actually talked about him on the podcast.
I don't think
He
so.
was in one of our main friend groups. So our elementary school friend group kind of stuck together all the way through high school. We acquired some from one other school because there's 4 elementary schools that fed into the middle school. But for the most part, it was like this really solid group, and he was one of our best friends growing up. Everyone lived in the same neighborhood. You rode bicycles to everybody's house. Classic stuff that, kids don't do anymore. Anyhow, this kid had the worst luck on the face of the earth, which stinks because he was also the world's nicest human being. He just was so happy and always wanted good for everyone else. But this kid could not catch a break. He got brain cancer like 7 times. He was always in surgery. He was always just getting out of surgery. And like he just kept getting messed up more and more. And then Steven Lurchenfeld's dog bit him in the face when we were kids. So then he had scarring on his face his entire life because of that. And then one of the times they took him in to the doctors, they put an IV in him and they missed the vein. And they didn't pay attention and left him, and his hand swelled up like the size of a basketball, huge. And then it was never right again. And then, like, slowly one of the sides of his body wasn't working that well, so he's kind of dragging a foot. And then he had more brain cancer, and then he had another surgery. And he ended up passing away when we were something like 25 or 26, and it was heartbreaking because he was the nicest guy ever. But he just got dealt a bad hand. Yeah, I kind of miss him. But
It's called infiltration. Jenna told me.
what happened to him?
Yeah, like when it's not being fed into your blood.
Yeah.
And it is just being like
Going
pumped
somewhere
into
else.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently it can really, really mess you up.
That's what Jenna said. Jenna said it can kill you.
You know the movies? Yeah, well, Lord knows everything was trying to, this poor kid.
No doubt.
Another thing, isn't it something that you see in movies are like, this syringe has air in it, and if I put this air into your bloodstream, it'll get to your heart and kill you in 2 seconds, and the person's like in a coma like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Is that real?
It is real. It's funny that you're saying that because I just had
It's
a
very
conversation.
Hollywood.
It is real.
It is real,
So
but they oversaturate it.
So the length, if
Like
I'm
me with a
remembering
picture?
probably, they have like the bag up on the hook, and then the length of that's like a standard size, and it's a little bit shorter than the amount of air that it would take to kill you.
Oh, okay.
So that's like the amount of air that it would take for you to need in your body for it's like becomes like a bad thing, which is a lot of air being pumped into you. But if it's in a needle,
Not in the movie. No, I'm just kidding.
but if it's in the needle, it's your body just absorbs it relatively quickly.
Okay.
So that's
Well,
that's what I was
James
taught the other
Bond
day.
would disagree.
Yeah, they would.
That-
Meanwhile, what was in the needle was like arsenic.
Yeah. Instant death.
That'd do it too, I bet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That would.
but it would show up in the scans.
yeah.
One of the topics I feel like we've been avoiding has been like we've been on these trips and everyone's talking about it on social media and we're posting these videos and stuff, but on the podcast we've like
No.
completely stayed away from the topic of the trips we've been on. So I just kind of want to do like a little bit of a recap and some of my favorite moments from it to let people kind of know what to expect with the History Channel series as well.
We were gone for a long time, so.
We haven't been back in ages. I barely know what my bed feels like.
Yep. With all this travel, you can just tell. You experience how quick a month goes by.
Yeah.
It's actually getting a little out of hand. I don't like it because I'm
it
like,
is a
well, no,
lot.
I got to get all this done. Can
Yeah.
I have March back? I didn't get March. I didn't get a March.
We didn't get March, no.
No, that wasn't a thing
And-
for us.
What's in the
End of
beginning of
February.
June?
Something.
The beginning of June, we will be in Yankton, South Dakota,
Oh, that's right.
fishing for Asian. I only know this because I booked the Airbnb yesterday. Which, by the way, we got two really good ones. The Airbnb in South Dakota has a really big bathtub with a TV overlooking a huge overlooking the river.
Okay.
Is that Crofton?
I don't know. It's actually in Nebraska. We're on the other side of the river from where we're fishing.
Nebraska. So we'll go back to. We can go do my golf course.
No.
It's a good golf course. You guys will be thoroughly impressed by
I
it.
would golf. We're driving anyways.
That's true.
Guys, this golf. If they maintained it, this golf course
You're
is
not
wild.
getting this one for free.
We
so.
could literally
I
bring
bet
our
I
club-
could.
we-
I know the pro, Brian.
Yeah, you know the inmates too.
We could actually bring
They're not nice to him.
we could bring the clubs.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah. We actually could
I'd like to.
because we've got the
It's called Tatanka.
we're going to be taking a boat.
For real. It's
My-
called Tatanka Golf Course.
No.
My swing's good.
I haven't been there. I know that. Ryan used to have a job where he used to help build golf courses with his daddy.
Yeah.
That's the whole story.
Yep.
But
Thanks for tuning in.
one of the trips that we went on recently and an episode that has stressed us out more than all others
Yes.
was python hunting in the Everglades. We went on our first trip there to film, and we took Dustin from Bass Pro.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this now. Hopefully Dustin doesn't hear this, but and this will probably piss people off, but I'm pretty sure I had COVID, but I was sicker than hell the first 3 days that we were there. We had our dogs yelling for no reason.
No one gets.
He goes,
COVID
ah.
anymore.
I believe I did, but I had a fever the first 2 days we were out there filming, and I felt god awful. And on top of that, we had just gotten those new mics, and I fell in the water
Oh,
and ruined one of the new mics, which was also relative because they're like
they're not cheap.
9.
900 plus
Plus the actual mic.
plus the mic was another what 400 or 500.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like plus
was-
the batteries are not cheap.
Two pack is $53.
Yeah, I mean it was a little bit of a bite, but while we're there, the problem was we're deciding that while they say there is about 250,000 to 300,000
Oh,
to
yeah.
150,000, no one really knows how many pythons are in the Everglades, but they think around 250,000 seems to be the normal number that everyone's saying, and for a long time, basically 2 species per week were going extinct. And the only reason why that number has slowed down in the Everglades, the only reason why that number has slowed down is because they're
they're all
running
gone.
out of species. Yes. 99% of every creature with fur in the Everglades is now gone, eaten, devoured by pythons. And
Nice.
that's horrendous. Basically what happened is you have people that have pets that kind of outgrow their cages and that sort of thing. They're letting them go. Also, there was a hurricane back in either the late 90s or early 2000s that there was a facility there that raised pythons, and I think it was Harvey, but I don't remember.
No.
Harvey was like 2 years ago.
Harvey
was
was
not Harvey.
2012.
What was it, Andrew?
Maybe Andrew.
I don't know. I don't want to guess,
I was a kid.
even though I guessed twice. But the point is, this facility, they raised pythons there. And what happened was the hurricane wiped it out. Pythons got out and then went into the Everglades, and it was just a sanctuary for them. They love the hot weather. They
Yeah,
love
they
the
do.
moist weather. There was plenty of game for them to eat. tons and tons of things for them to kill. They've reproduced. They have breeding seasons now, like literal breeding
balls.
breeding balls
50
of
eggs
pythons.
per birth.
50 to 100 eggs per python. For females, it's insane. So they've just spilled out, but that's the story that they tell you. And we're seeing the effects of it. We're seeing far less species. We're seeing far less animals with fur. We're seeing far less all those things like they're saying. But gosh darn it, is it hard to find these things. And, we learned there's other shows out there, too, that, like, are completely circled and based around python hunting. And there's a few of them that are, well, all of them are full of it. So here's the thing. Basically, you watch these shows, and these people go out and catch 3 or 4, 7, 8 pythons in a day. They're just landing on top of garages. They're here, they're there, they're everywhere. Anytime you see that, if it's not real.
It's the same snake.
It's this. Yeah, they use the same snake over and over again. So all those YouTube channels that you're watching, other main TV shows, that sort of thing, where they're just showing tons and tons and tons of pythons. We're with 2 of the top-rated guides and, like, python hunters in the world. 2 of the most highly rated, highly respected, well-known, documented, incredible python hunters that literally have been commissioned by the government to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we had one day where we got 9, and we have never seen a day like that since. You're lucky. Most days you get none. Some days you can get 1. Some days you'll get lucky and get 2 or 3. But for the most part, you'll go 3 or 4 days before you get 1, and maybe you'll get 2 or 3 at a time, but it's very few and far between. They're like, if you give it 5 or 6 days, you pretty much guarantee you're going to get 1 or 2. That's the real thing.
And I would believe that.
So
we experienced it.
yeah,
Well,
so
yeah, I know.
we did an episode on this back in the day, like season 3-ish.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago. And
Late 2018.
so we did it back then, and when we were there, we ended up getting 2, but we were there for like 7 or 8 days, and the 2 that we got were back to back within minutes of each other. Doing it this time, we gave it like a full week, didn't get 1, and then had to go back and give it another 3 days, and then finally got 1, and just got 1. Now the one we got was a good size. The thing was crazy, and I'll leave those details for the episode itself. But I guess my point is that the point that I want to make about this was the thing about the python hunting that was so difficult was just covering that much land. It's a little sketchy because while I was wearing snake boots, like everything that you've ever been programmed to learn or your dog has been programmed to learn, you'll never see a dog go rolling around in leaves right next to a riverbank or something like that because they sense that something could be in there that would bite them. And I've been taught my whole life not to do specific things. We were out there doing all those things to try and find one.
You're doing your best to do that.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is python's the least of your worries because there's like 4 or 5 other snakes in there that can just kill you if they bite you.
Actually kill you.
Yeah, so that was a little nerve-wracking. And we ended up meeting, her name is Amy. So on her...
Python Huntress.
The Python Huntress on Instagram. Super, super cool woman. Her husband's awesome, too. We actually went fishing with him, and they had us over to hang out at their house after, and they made us, what was the fish?
Oscar.
Oscars.
Oscar, which was
They
phenomenal.
made fried Oscars. They had, like...
Of the piranha family.
Yes.
And they were good.
Their teeth are in the way back of their throat, and they do have teeth in the front, but they've got the teeth in the way back of their throat. But I was talking to my Uncle Jim about him, and that we ate Oscars. He's like, I used to have an Oscar for a pet.
Yeah.
He's like, watch this YouTube video. It's like, Oscar eats 30 minnows in under 18 seconds or something, and the person drops these minnows in the thing, and that thing is just like boom, 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 just eating them. And then my dad used to have them as a kid, or not as a kid, actually, as an adult in their first house. My mom and dad had like this huge aquarium built into the wall in the basement.
Dang.
And he said like all the other fish were like in the tank, and they lived in the tank. The Oscars and the piranhas watched outside the tank, and one of the piranhas didn't like my mom. When she would come down there, he'd try and splash her. He'd go to the top and like splash her and stuff like that, and really liked my dad. And they knew if they saw you, that meant food, and they'd get excited. And yeah, it was like they're very like personable fish. Good eating too.
Don't want to eat ya.
Very good.
To describe them, if you've never seen one, I'm sure AJ will put one up on the screen for you. But if you've never, if you're just listening to the podcast, they do kind of look like a piranha. But if I was to describe them, they look like a giant panfish, like a giant sunfish of some sort, with kind of like a mix of rock bassy feel to them, with a piranha mouth.
Were they the ones with the hard shell?
No,
No.
No, that
that
wasn't
was
them.
Placosmus.
Yeah, that was another thing we did.
Or they remind me of the peacock bass because they had the circle on their tail.
They do have the circles on their tail. Yeah.
It's they're all black.
The pattern's
with
a little
it.
snakeheady.
Yeah, a little bit. They're real dark in color with an orange circle, like eyeball dot on there. Tail.
Kind of beautiful.
Yeah, they're cool. Pretty popular aquarium fish too.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Sorry.
as far as their aggression goes, we were casting like we were in the Everglades, and we were casting. Well, not in the Everglades National Park, but we were in the Everglades. But we were casting running up along the bank, and like we did like something like 20 casts and got 18 of them, and they were all like little footballs.
Yeah, yeah. To go back to the python thing, Amy, the python huntress, was saying that
No matter how many times I say Python Princess, it's Python Huntress.
You do say princess.
Well, the problem is,
So
is
funny.
like when a name gets stuck in my head, man, I just can't undo it.
yeah,
Princess.
it's like you do it on purpose though.
Oh man.
She was saying that they were doing like an audit on these python hunter Instagram accounts, and it's illegal there to transport pythons alive. So they have to be dead to move them from place to place, understandably.
And I don't know that it was always that way, but I know for a fact now it is.
I think she said it was recent.
I thought so too, but I want to stick. I don't want to put
Yeah,
that.
I don't know. 'Cause,
I think that's the case, but let's not say that is for sure the case.
Yeah, I don't know.
But as of right now, you can't move them around. They did this audit on all these Instagrammers, and the pattern on a python is like a fingerprint, where this is what she was saying, where it's like it's
No two are the same.
particular to that snake.
Yep.
That
No-
snake has that pattern.
No two are the same.
And there was something like 200 photos or 200 accounts, all with this same snake in different spots being caught, which is someone's pet that they're just moving around and catching.
Yep.
That's how those other shows are created too. The problem is that's like highly illegal,
Yeah, not good. Not good.
and they don't want you transporting them around because they don't want idiots dumping pets out there. They don't want people transporting them around. You're supposed to kill them. We got to get rid of them.
Do we want to talk about the FWC?
Well, the FWC wouldn't let me be or let me be me, so let me see. They try to shut us down in
We're gonna get a copyright
Everglades
strike.
TV,
Dang.
but you know it felt so empty without me. So
Nice.
come on,
You
get
kept going.
the snake and hit. Anyhow,
Right.
the FWC, yes. So I don't even know if I told you the end of that though. We had a recent phone call with them. They
Oh, really?
called me after. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I have no problem kind of trashing them a little bit. The South Florida Water Management, they made our lives extremely difficult as far as getting licenses in there to film.
Mm-hmm.
It is very hard to get in. It's very exclusive to get in.
Very difficult.
They made me get all of this insurance and have them listed on our insurance before they would even consider doing it. So business insurance isn't cheap. Liability insurance isn't cheap. None of this stuff is cheap especially for filming and production and all that stuff. In order to get the licenses into film, they wanted to be listed as on our insurance, which they're like, well, it shouldn't be a big deal. It is kind of a big deal because, number one, you also want us to have insurance policies that are more than even our sponsors want us to have. So now we got to deal with all these new additions of stupidity. We're getting like drone insurance in case AJ goes kamikaze with it. It's like a whole thing. And so we go through that entire process. Took 2 months to deal with them to finally get the approval, and they gave it to us when we were already on our way there.
Well, you have to add them first, and then they'll consider whether or not you're approved to go in to do it.
Yeah, you add us on all your insurance, pay all this money, do all these things, and then we'll decide whether you're allowed to go in there and film. I will say in the end, I made friends with the lady, so
She was very nice.
I will give her the credit that it got done, and I'm appreciative of that. The FWC, however, we tried to set up filming with them, and couldn't get any traction with them. This person told me to talk to that person told me to talk to this person's on vacation, this one's
Which is crazy.
typical government job stuff.
It's crazy because you did. I tried doing it. Did the same thing. We both called the same number, and we both went like this in two different directions when we both tried it separately.
I mean, we're the same, you understand? Same companies pitching the same stuff.
It was crazy.
So-
Two different strings of nonsense.
We ended up getting one woman who ended up being really nice, who was going to help us and help track down all the right people for it and stuff. And we're like, okay, great. We've got some traction. We're going to be good. She sets us up. And then I try and call and follow up, tell them the dates. We go, come home. 2 weeks later, they call and go, sorry, it's taking us so long to get back with you. So what is it that you guys want to do? I'm like,
gosh,
we
dude.
And keep in mind, that wasn't trip 1. That was trip 2. We tried to get a hold of them for trip 1 where we failed. We were there a week, came home for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then went back for a week, then came home again, and then 2 weeks later after that, that's when they returned the calls.
And
If that isn't government timing, I don't know what is. Meanwhile, we're trying to help these people.
That's the thing. Keep
That's
all
what's
that in
annoying.
mind.
That's what's annoying. It's like they don't owe us anything.
The whole project is to get people involved to help this so declared problem
Right.
that they don't want anyone to go do, seemingly.
So we're trying to help you. We're trying to publicize this, and we're the only ones not bringing pet pythons out there and faking it, or moving the same snake around 50 times. We're doing it with your people, your way, trying to highlight your work. And they're like, yeah, we're going to need 6 months to think that one over. So,
dude,
it was
rough.
frustrating.
It was rough.
That was like the first experience with government where it just went sour real quick.
Yeah.
Personal.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I just get mad because it's like, we're
Well,
trying to help you.
That and enough stress goes into producing each episode,
Now you're going to add roadblocks.
and they're like not easy roadblocks. We're pretty good about figuring stuff out on quickly.
Mm-hmm.
These were not quick fixes. And working with them, well, I'll call you back next week. I'll do this. I'll do that. And it's all a week. So much time goes into these episodes, and they did their absolute best to make it difficult.
Yeah. And they're like, well, let us know when the episode's going to air. We'd love to check it out. I'm like, lady.
Tune in.
Yeah. Like, we're going to roast you. Check our podcast.
Yeah. How do they not know the difficulties they cause?
They do know. It's like, but they live to and
But there's
dude,
there's
I'm
no-
telling you that
it's-
because they get to make you fill this out and fill that
Yeah.
out. Nope, I need to see this, and this doesn't have this, and this. And they just love it, dude. They
Yeah, they
soak
do.
in the moment,
And
making
so-
my
They
life
do.
difficult.
In some sense, it's a little sad because the people you're dealing with, there's no incentive for them to help us. That's why it's so difficult. There's no, it's
Oh,
not,
yeah,
you're
there's
not
no
working with a
rush.
business that's like, yeah, this benefits me and you. They look at it as, man, what, like,
Because
I-
they don't
I
care
don't-
about their job.
I don't, I don't receive any personal benefit from this, so I don't care,
Right.
100%.
which is sad.
100%. But I do want to hit on one thing too. Again, it's her Instagram is Python Huntress. If you go there, so Amy, she goes out, hunts pythons all the time, and then she actually tans the skins.
Mm-hmm.
She has different colors, dyes them, and she has bracelets and
They're really cool.
what is it, iWatch or
Apple Watch?
Apple Watch. She makes the bands for those out of genuine United States python, and it's all made in the USA.
They're really nice.
Super, super cool. So check
Any
out.
color you want to, I think.
I got the coolest blue bracelet.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
really
pumped.
sweet.
I know, I'm pumped about it. I'm probably gonna get more stuff.
I'd like to. It was
Well,
really,
yeah,
really awesome.
Well, the other thing is,
I
it's
want the black one. The
From-
dyed black.
from her, it's real.
Yeah, right.
So then there's that benefit because a lot of like leather and python and things like that, you never know what's real and what's not. But she does it all herself, so pretty
Yeah,
cool.
she was great.
Check that out. But the episode itself was fantastic. I the build up to it, the stories, the people. We had Tom Rahill out there from the Swamp Apes. Just this.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time. Yeah, yes. We spent a lot of time in Florida.
You're wearing his watch band or his
Oh, I'm like, what are you saying? Iwa. What is Iwa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enhance.
Oh, I forget.
Endure, evolve, achieve.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's his chant.
But Tom Rahill, wonderful, wonderful human being, and he's gonna be in the episode with us. He does a lot of great work,
Doing it for a long
and
time.
he knows how to live, breathe, and sleep the python. So it's a cool episode. I think you guys will dig it. From the adventure standpoint, it's awesome. Ryan loses a limb, and you'll have to check that one out.
Trust isn't built in a day. It's built over time. The early hours and the late nights. It's built by doing the work and pushing the limits every day. Because the promises we make are the promises we were built to keep.
The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Motor Trend's Truck of the Year for the third year in a row. And by Bass Pro Shop and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. Tracker Boats. Fish the finest. And by these other fine sponsors.
Well, on the subject of Florida, we also did our Sea-Doo episode in the 10,000 islands of Florida.
10,000 islands.
Which one?
Which is always the question. And there's actually not 10,000. There's more like 14,000, I think they say.
Okay.
But it's the hidden gem of Florida. It was beautiful. We did the camping, survival. I mean, we had everything we ever needed to survive for
We had creme
forever.
brulee, so.
We did eat creme brulee, freeze-dried creme brulee.
So
That
filling.
was so good, dude.
I've never done anything like that in my life. And we found an island out there through the recommendation of some locals.
Yep.
And went there on our Sea-Doos, scoped it out, put up our hammocks, and dude, it was the best.
It was as close to winging it as we've done, I think.
Just for sure winging it.
Dangerously winging it.
I will say, just
Packing all the camera equipment on the back of a Sea-Doo.
hoping for the best.
Hoping for the best.
Dude.
One point, just for those of you who don't know the 10,000 islands. Think the southwest corner, which is on the Gulf side, southwest corner of Florida, and down there is what's called Everglades City. If you're looking for it on a map or you want something that you might understand a little better, you've got Naples, and then below Naples you have Marco Island, and then below Marco Island, Marco kind of comes out into the water a ways, and then it kind of creates a cove, and underneath that, and then tucked all the way down towards Everglades City, and then well past that, you have this area called 10,000 Islands. So that's the area that we're in. What's like Ryan was saying, and AJ said too, is we were kind of winging it. For this episode, we wanted to go someplace where we could go out, fish, actually catch fish, knowing we didn't know much about saltwater fishing. Do it on Sea-Doos, but also then just kind of catch and cook and survive, and just kind of be able to camp out and just kind of have that experience, which creates its own level of frustrations and difficulties because, number one, we didn't want to go with a guide. Number two, we
Don't know saltwater.
don't know saltwater that much. Number three,
Is it salty?
number three problem was the fact that camera equipment, getting camera equipment out there, dealing with batteries and SD cards, and being able to be out there, genuinely film, genuinely do what we were saying we were doing in the show, and not just going in every night.
Right.
And then also getting out there is not easy. So you're getting out there on Sea-Doos with all the camera equipment and all the stuff. Then once you're out there, you're stuck there because as soon as it's dark, you can't ride Sea-Doos anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like you're there now. So this is where you're going to be.
And it was like we've never been put in the position. AJ and I have never been put in the position where with filming we have to be like very picky and choosy with when you're turning your camera on and what you're filming. Where usually it's like we go back to
Yeah, it was kind of like shooting on real film. Like you only have so
much film.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Can't clear anything.
was fun, but also not fun in that aspect where you're standing over water the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And also with catching fish, you want to catch the fish on camera. So while fishing, you have to kind of keep the camera on and running the whole time. That was tough. That was tough to navigate, but we did it.
It was super tough. In the sense of basically, too, is like we had to kind of scope everything out and assess what was going on. So we get out there the first day, and we started off by just going to a local bait shop and being like, hey, we don't know nothing about nobody. Can you at least point us in the right direction? And they kind of were like, yeah, if you go, you're going to want to use this for bait. They're kind of doing this. This is what people are catching. This is kind of what you look for. They were kind of helpful, but it was just kind of a mass of opinions. And our biggest fear was not getting lost. So the 10,000 Islands, it used to be used for the drug trades where they would, because you could get lost in there. Everything looks the same. There's 10,000 of the same damn thing. Everything looks the same.
It was crazy.
Everything looks fishy. Everything looks the same. So people would go out and they would have the drug smuggling shacks and stuff out there. And if you didn't know your way around, you weren't getting around. So our biggest assessment was like, where do we go and what do we do and how do we make sure we don't get lost? So that was like one of our big things. We did, we go to the bait shop, grab the bait. We go out for like a test trial day. AJ and Ryan went off to go try and figure out where would be a good idea for us to camp the next day. And I went out to try and go out and find fish.
Yep.
Consequently, all I did was I just bounced around stuff I had seen on YouTube, like doing different tactics like that. And then I ended up finding a group of boats and a bunch of crab traps, like in this area, in this stretch inside 10,000 Islands. And I was like, okay, what makes this area significant? And when I pulled up to near these people, number one, they hate you because you're on a Sea-Doo. And number two, although they're interested because it's a fishing vessel. And number two, they're like, they're a charter service, so they're not looking to give anybody any tips.
Yeah, right.
So I was kind of watching what they were doing from a distance, and then when they left, I went over and assessed what the depth was of water that they were in, and they were all in like 19, 20 foot of water. Almost everywhere else we went, it was like something like 5 foot, 6 foot,
Shallow as hell.
maybe 10 foot at some places, and then in low tide, no foot, footless. So.
Yeah. That, which is also the scary part of navigating the 10,000 Islands, is like, if you're not near the ocean, if you get deep in there, you might get stuck back there, because once the tide goes out, it's just the oyster bars are just trapping you in. There's no way around it.
And the first day when we did this, when I was bouncing around, it's so crazy too, is like, you see, I was looking at 2 different thunderstorms, but it was sunny where I was, but you can see so far, and you just never know when they're going to blow your way and this sort of thing. And one did end up blowing my way, and I was going up, and I was like going back deeper to try and find pools. Because what I read was in the 10,000 Islands is if you can find like little deep pools, fish will go in there and they'll stay in there. And then even through low tide and high tide, they can hang out. So I'm looking for that. And I ended up not seeing it whatsoever. And it was like 3 foot of water, which is very common. 2 foot of water, very common. But then it was no foot of water. And it was like probably a foot, but I didn't see. And there was a oyster bar there. And I went right on top of it. And I was like, oh, F. Because number one, I'm scared to death that I maybe hurt the Sea-Doo that isn't ours. And number two, I'm like, how am I going to get off of this? So then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take off my shoes because I don't want my shoes to get all wet. I'm going to have to get out and push. And then I was like, but I don't know how sharp those are. So I'm just going to reach down with my foot and feel it. And I just tapped it with my toe and was like, oh, that's the sharpest thing I've ever felt. There's knives down
razors.
There. So then I got our Ego fishing net, and thank goodness those things are freaking durable. I stretched it out, put it in the water, and I'm like wedging it against the oyster bar, and I'm trying to bounce and get the Sea-Doo unstuck, and it ended up working.
It ended up working, but he comes back to shore. We meet rendezvous back up, and the foam around the handle is like just shredded.
Oh, that's right.
That's my bad. I own that. But I mean, it could happen.
Do what you gotta do.
The water was brown, like you couldn't. It was like chocolate milk, so you weren't seeing. So it's like you just didn't know. And if you didn't know the oyster bar was there was
no clarity.
Surprise, shorty. So then I ended up bouncing around and going to a spot where. And I forgot the name of this fish. It's a type of kingfish.
I can't remember.
Something. It's called like South Kingfish. Hold on.
Southern kingfish?
The southern kingfish. When I saw it, I was like, that thing looks a lot like a redfish, but I'd never seen a redfish with a thing underneath their lip, and this one doesn't have a spot. But it might be a redfish. And if it's not a redfish, it's not big enough to keep. So I think I better let it go. And then, dude, there's nothing worse than coming in and like reading about it, because you're like,
it's so funny.
Well, what I was like, well, I don't think you could eat it. So I look, and the ones I was catching were like 14 to 16 inches. And I was like, when I got in, I was like trying to figure out what it was, and sure as shit, I find it, and it's got that thing on the chin, no spot. And I'm like, oh, dang, okay. Well, kingfish aren't really always that good. These are also known as whiting, and that I had heard of. And that I knew you could eat. And then I read the thing, and it was like, if you've been to a restaurant and had whitefish, you're probably eating whiting. One of the best eating fish ever. No size limit. No this, no that. Keep as long as you want.
If you ever throw one away, you're an idiot.
Yeah, basically. So I catch the first, I let him go, but I didn't know this yet. And then I ended up, then it was like I caught 4 or 5 of them.
Damn.
You know, and it was so funny because we get back to the boat launch. I still don't know this little piece of information about how good they are yet. I get back, and there's a few guys hanging out at the boat launch. And there's a few guys there, and they're all just kind of chilling at the boat launch. And when we pulled our Sea-Doo out, they're like, man, that's nice. Can I look at that? And they come over. And I was like, yeah, check it out. No big deal. And it turns out that all 3 of them run these guide services that compete with each other, but they're like Sea-Doo tour guide services. And
they're all friends, too.
And they're all friends, but they should be competitors, but they're not. They're just friends. And they were waiting for people that were out on tours to come back in. So they were out riding around on the Sea-Doos, and then they come back in, and they pick up the Sea-Doos and go. And I ended up becoming like best friends with these guys. I showed them the picture of it, and they're like, "Oh yeah." And he said, he goes, if you get one, you can normally get a bunch, but finding those things is so hard. I mean, if you get on those, you're in luck. And I'm like, oh, geez.
So funny.
And the fact that he was saying you're in luck, I was like, I wonder if they're still good eating though. So later on, when I Googled it, I figured that out. But the guys that we met back at the boat launch, they were so cool. And they're like,
It's funny too because Asia and I were together, and when we rolled up, I'm like, "What the hell is this?" Because
I was surrounded by people.
well,
Yeah.
the way that you were surrounded by people, and you were loading up the Sea-Doo, and the way they were like looking at the stuff, and like the way like from a distance the interaction was happening, I thought they were giving you a hard time,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like,
Like speed it up, blah blah blah.
yeah, like you
Which
know, like
happens
the
quite often.
boat ramp riff,
Yeah.
and thankfully that wasn't the case. They were the nicest people.
Weren't you
ever.
like shouting something? You guys walked up like you were like.
No, I shouted something. What did I?
You did.
I think you might have been referencing us. I was like, I don't know you. I don't know you.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. But you walked up, and I can tell you were assessing to figure out if I needed help to get out of the situation,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
someone had me cornered,
Yep.
or if I enjoyed this conversation.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's funny because we have this look that we give each other because when we go places, I end up getting cornered, and then we lose half a day.
Yeah.
But I'll like hint like no, good people, and then Ryan like
biggest weakness is homeless people.
yeah, I'll give them anything they need.
Here's my bank account information.
Oh my god.
They might need it. So anyhow, the guys we end up talking to, they run these tour guide services, and he's like, listen, man, Avi was the main guy that we're talking to. He's like, I know where to take you, where you're gonna see things that nobody's ever seen before. I know everything there is to know about here. I know the 10,000 islands like the back of my hand. We're gonna take you guys out and show you. He called them Indian mounts, is what he kept referencing them as.
Ancient Indian mountains.
Indian mounts.
So the guy takes me down to the water immediately
Dismal
while
Peak.
we're there. He takes me down there, and he's like, look it. And he digs past the dirt just a little bit, and this is just where we're standing by the boat launch. And he's like, you see all those shells? And I was like, yeah. He goes, digs deeper. He goes, all shells, right? I go, yeah. He goes, do you know how tall this the water line is here, or the I guess the
Flood height.
flood height is here? I go, no. He goes, 11 feet. And I'm using an accent, not to be rude, but it's just when I think of
from
Avi,
Israel.
I say it in his, yeah, he's from Israel. I say it in his accent, but he's like, it's 11 feet. Well, it turns out that in Florida, in order to get into like flood insurance, your home has to be like 11 foot above sea level, because that's like the magic number as far as like hurricanes go, as far as like high tides go, as far as floods go. 11 foot is the magic number. He goes, do you know how they determine that? I said, how? He goes, well, the Native Americans in this area, when they would stay at these islands, they lived in these islands. So what they would do is they would take the oyster shells and they would stack them and stack them and stack them and stack them. And that's how the islands are made. Not all of them, but
Yeah, not
they're
all 10,000.
the ones that they lived on. So the ones that they live on have these, because basically what was happening is the Native Americans that lived there, all their shit was being taken, you know, every time there was a bad flood or a tide or a hurricane or anything like that. So they're like, we need to, they figured out back then that 11 foot was the magic number, and we still use it today for insurance, which is kind of cool.
I do like that part
It
of
is
that.
really crazy.
So but they would take, and he said the one island that we were on, he said it took probably 500 years to make. So imagine being like born like somewhere around year 300, and you're like, you see, we made progress. Like, you know,
Are we
like,
done yet?
But I'll tell you what, your great grandkids aren't, because your life expectancy is like 30 years. Your great grandkids won't even see this, but eventually this will be an island that everyone lives on.
You still got a foot.
Yeah,
Keep working.
Yeah, and they would have to go by bucket after bucket after bucket, just dumping shells in order to make the place taller, which is pretty fascinating.
Fascinating.
It is.
Also,
fascinating.
the fish traps.
Oh yeah, so that was another thing that Avi showed us too. Is so we roll up on this fish trap, and this is gonna be in the actual show, and so is some of the other really cool things. I don't even want to spoil necessarily the cool things that Avi showed us.
He showed us quite a few different things that were.
We got to see an old drug shack. We got to see.
You're ruining it.
No, just that.
Shh.
But there's cool things that are going to be in the actual TV show that he showed us that nobody gets to see. It was so cool, and the stories behind him were incredible. But anyhow, guy takes us, and we go out and what was I talking about? I lost
Fish
my
trap.
The fish trap. Yeah. So just like the islands were built up using oyster shells, there was a big U, basically, or almost a complete circle, almost a complete ring, but with a hole in it, made in the
Yeah.
water. So they imagine it's about 100 yards across, 100 yards diameter circle, we'll say, okay? And it's in the zone that floods and also
the
low
tide.
tide it's in the tide. So it could be completely dry land. It could be 10 foot of water and everywhere in between, just depending on what part of the day it is.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Native Americans would do is they would use this giant ring, and there would be like what you would call a door or a hole in the ring, in the circle. And what they would do is they would stand at that hole, and they would cast shells into the hole and run them up into the circle. And what that would do is it would make the fish think it was minnows. So they would follow them into the circle. So now they're all going into this big, giant circle. And at high tide, once they had a bunch of fish in,
And if you don't know oyster shells, which are everywhere there because they make their islands, they're like a highly iridescent, glimmery shell on the inside.
good words. Yeah.
Thank you. So they would, as you were saying, cast.
Yeah, and I'm trying to
that's right,
I'm trying to
'cause that's how you
articulate this well.
Tractor them in.
If you're listening to the podcast, you can, or you're gonna have to take my word for it. But if you're watching it, you're probably seeing at least what this looked like at some point. But it's a giant circle, and there's this little opening, and then they're casting stuff into the opening, and the hope is that the fish will swim into the circle. And if they swim in there, they wait until high tide, and they'll put a door in, a blocker, so the fish can't get back out. The tide will recede, and there'll be dry land, and the fish couldn't get out of the trap, so they're all just on dry land. And then the people would go in and scoop them all up, and now they got their fish. And that was how they would catch tons of fish fast, and it would work efficiently. The thing is probably over 500 years since it's been used, and it's still there today. And a little TLC, and we could have that thing in full operation inside of
It was really
inside of
cool.
2 hours.
It was really strange to be standing on like this is it. Like someone built this right here.
But
And survived.
you could drive past it every day and not know that that's what it was, though.
No, you would think
You know,
it was
you
just
just-
some normal island.
Because there's so many islands, so you just think it's like
10,000.
yeah. Well, more than that. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so that was really fascinating to see in person, and just to have like that call back to like the native. If you knew where to look and how to look, there is like so much Native American history all under your feet. But
Yeah.
people just don't even know, and people don't go to 10,000 Islands because I don't know why. It's just you kind of have to be in a survival mode or a touristy mode to really get into it, because it's an
Yeah.
all-day affair no matter what you do.
Yeah. Or a few day affair if you're us.
Yeah.
I also the other fact that I really enjoyed, this one stood out to me and I thought was fascinating for whatever reason, was the mangroves. Avi kept saying
yeah.
every 1 in 30, every 1 in 30 leaves on a mangrove is yellow, because what it will do is push the salt from the roots all the way up into that leaf, and that leaf turns yellow and bloop, falls off, and that's how it's cleaning out its system. It's like taking a poop
Yeah, essentially. That's a
and
good point.
and cleaning itself out of any nasties. Is that yellow
So you'll
leaf?
see them in the water.
Yeah,
They keep
they're
bringing them
everywhere.
out.
And it makes perfect sense because the mangroves are subjected to salt water all the time, because these mangrove trees are all over the islands. And like Ryan said, if the salt water gets into where they're getting their fresh water from, which happens all the time, they'll get that salt in the root system, and the tree knows it's got to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it sends it all to a direct leaf, but it also that is how it gets rid of about 10 to 20% of its salt. The rest of it actually comes out in what looks like little chicken pox all over the tree,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually like little pores that it actually allows the salt to go out. So like there's these little bumps all over the tree,
Like
and if you
little
were to
warts.
scratch them with a knife, it's all salt.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they sweat it out through there, and then they burn the rest out through the leaves. And I think whatever they can't get out through the pores is what they get out through the leaf. So that's the remaining
So as
stuff
it-
that
as
they
it
weren't
goes
able
up.
to. That's the remaining stuff they weren't able to get rid of.
Interesting. And he was saying, I wish I could remember better. Good thing we film everything.
It's gonna be a TV show, you understand?
It was the red mangrove and black mangrove,
There was a lot. I don't remember all the different colors.
because he was saying
That man was spitting out facts from the second.
he was
we-
crazy. It
Yeah.
was like an encyclopedia.
It'll help me with my voiceovers because I'll just go back and watch all the footage.
Shoot, there was 2 different types of mangrove, and they survived differently in that sense. Do you remember? It was on.
I don't remember though. I only remember that specific one.
Okay.
Yeah, I only remember the yellow leaf thing.
I think we might have been separated when he was explaining that.
I do also know that those mangroves, they're a green all year tree, so they don't have a season where they have a fall or like where trees shed their leaves or anything like that. The only way they shed them is through this salt mutilation thing.
Mutilation.
Salt Depot.
Yeah.
Salt pooping.
Yeah, they're little salt poops. So yeah, then you guys had a successful day out there the first day picking out the island. I had a successful day, the most successful day of the trip actually, catching fish when we weren't filming it. And then you guys went out and found the right island and decided we were going to go. And then we were supposed to tent and camp, and then we completely changed our minds to go hammocks, which I didn't really enjoy sleeping in a hammock because I got sunken in, so I was kind of like getting crouched in the middle kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I did like the pack up and the ease of that because a tent would have had sand all in it. Would have been
the way to go.
Yeah,
Just deal with it.
It was just so much easier to just put up a hammock, get in it, and call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
And it had little mosquito nets.
Yeah. Yeah, the ones we found were great.
Something happened at night. I sleep talk.
Yeah,
So
I wish I would have.
you guys didn't take me seriously because I sleep talk, but I was awake.
Dude,
it was.
I remember that. I'm like, what the hell is he going on about?
It was in the middle of the night. There was something. So we're in an island, and we are very secluded. We are 26 miles from the closest town that we can actually see in the distance.
Yeah,
but
you're
we're
seeing like the tops of the buildings on the horizon.
Yeah, the resorts and stuff.
like 26 miles away, though. So you're in the janky. You're in the dark. You are alone. You are
Alone.
There is
Very
no.
dark.
There's no one around. It's so dark. The stars are so beautiful. Some of the pictures we took are just so magical. Everything's great.
As much as you didn't want me to take them,
I know they're all ruined because I'm like, hi Ryan.
he
You're
kept going like that. You have to turn the exposure on for a while to get all the stars, and he keeps shining the flashlight. I'm like, stop looking, and then he'd look again, stop looking, and then he'd look again, stop looking, and he's shining this bright ass flashlight, just ruining every picture.
said I
I
was
was like,
sorry.
oh,
Sorry,
that's
sorry.
what you were saying.
Oh, they do turn out cool.
I thought he was being funny that he had to poop. I was like, I'm gonna watch.
I have to.
There could be bears out here. But yeah, it was like we were so secluded. So it's the middle of the night, and I wake up every 20 minutes. But I woke up, and there was like a light, and it was like a spotlight coming off a boat or the end of the shore. But then in the morning, I figured out where it was coming from. It had to be from a boat.
Okay.
So there was a boat out there with a spotlight going off, and it was hitting our island. And I'm like, it's getting kind of close to like where we're sleeping, and like, I'm like, I don't know what happens when they shine the light and they see us.
Right.
What are they gonna do? I don't know what they're gonna do. You know what they're gonna do? I don't know why a boat's doing that.
Yeah.
Pirates.
3 a.m.
Well, that was the other thing, and I could not get you guys to care.
No.
No.
You're like, hey.
yeah, I go, what's
look up,
that?
I'm
Flashlight.
I'm coming out of a
They're
dead
coming
sleep.
for us.
I'm looking over the edge of my hammock. And I go,
I'm like, good. I
he's
hope.
like, help, help.
I'm like, good. I hope we die. I
Oh
think
my
that's the last thing I said before I
Went back
drifted off to sleep.
I was already
for
back
20
to sleep.
minutes.
And then it was like 6 a.m. And then you guys kind of got up early. You guys got up at like 7. And I was like, okay, now I can sleep.
I don't know
So-
how you were sleeping as late as you did. The sun beating on us. It was hot. In the
I didn't sleep
hammock.
the whole night. You didn't hear.
Oh, yeah.
I just
Oh, I did hear. You're yelling at me.
look at. But those are just those adventures though that we'll always remember and have. And in the moment, they were actually a lot of work, getting the fire set up, getting the food set up. We ended up
Yeah.
trying, for what it's worth. I think it was Mountain House. I think is that
I don't
the
remember.
Mountain. I'm not
yeah
gonna
whatever.
know.
We tried the creme brulee. it's the freeze dried creme brulee.
Powder.
It's like,
Little
dude,
powder.
dude. Say it
should-
wasn't great.
It should be half the size of what it was, though. I'll
Yeah.
say that.
I ate mine and Ryan's. No, I'm just kidding.
I
1,300
enjoyed it more than
calories.
I thought I would.
I'm like, this is the greatest dessert I've ever had in my life.
I like
yeah,
that it was
but if it's
cold.
got sugar in it, you say it's the greatest.
But that was the greatest. I'm still saying it. I've had 3 things with sugar since then.
I could pull a SpongeBob ice cream now out, and you'd
You
say
gotta
it's
try
the
some
greatest.
flan.
They're only 90 calories. You can't not eat them. The point is,
Good luck
the point is, the creme brulee was fantastic.
It was good.
I
and
felt-
then, and then the stuff you put on
It's
top,
a nice island treat.
Oh my gosh, wasn't it? We were
little bit of grit and sand mixed in.
there was
Some.
sand in everything we ate for 3 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We were only there 2, but 3 days we had sand and everything.
yeah, it follows you. Followed us all the way back to Michigan.
I would cook. It's so annoying. I was walking and I was holding the fish fillets, and I was so proud I didn't get sand on them because you're not supposed to rinse freshwater fillets. Saltwater fillets with fresh water. You're not supposed to rinse saltwater fish with fresh water because it messes with the texture or something. So I was all proud that I cleaned them, and I'm walking back, and I'm like, all right, I didn't have to rinse them. I'm walking to the fire, and I didn't realize my shoe was lightly kicking up sand. and I was lightly kicking up
that's
sand in the
how it
fillets,
happened.
and then I had to rinse them off. And then we like deep fried them on the beach, but then like in the show, I'm just eating it, and it did taste good,
It was good. It was very good.
but there was sand in it.
there was sand in it. There
question.
was sand in it. I mean, it's
Crunch,
impossible
crunch,
not to
crunch.
Yeah,
get sand on it.
it's a different
everything.
crunch when it's sand, isn't
Oh,
it?
it's like bone.
It's not great. Yeah, it's not. It's not a good thing when it happens. But
No.
the fish itself
Still
is really
tasted
good.
great.
But as far as like the episode goes, it's a lot of adventure. It's a lot of really unique treasures that we got to see out there.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, the viewer, you get to see it without getting covered in mosquito bites, which is a big win.
Yeah.
And like I've told a couple people about our adventures since we've been back, and I get the same thing of like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. That just, you were out there all alone. What if something would have happened? I don't know what if, but I'm still here, so it didn't. So now
And you have a cool life
Exactly.
experience forever.
so hermit,
you-
keep hermiting.
Yeah,
Hermiting. Yeah, exactly.
we had knives.
Yeah.
You
I
get-
don't know. We've been dead from that
I
spotlight.
know. My
That
favorite
spotlight
thing
would
was
have killed us.
I was pitching Ryan to bring his handgun. He goes, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting sand in it. I'm like, but what if we do need it? You're like, I'm not ruining it.
I was more worried about the salt water.
I know.
I'm like, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that. We'll see what happens, but I ain't doing that.
If I die, I die.
The irony,
I don't care.
The
this time.
irony too. I don't want to ruin anything, but the irony was, it was very known that panthers in that area were known for attacking people in old stories that we were being told.
Yeah. Which we didn't see any, but
Not a one.
I wish we did.
Pythons ate them.
Saw bald eagle.
Yeah, like right over us.
That was pretty cool.
That was pretty
Out
cool.
in the middle of nowhere.
We did some night fishing while we were eating creme brulee.
Getting destroyed.
Yeah. We just got broken off.
We're from Michigan, okay?
We had a 100-pound test and got broken off like it was nothing. But we had like 8 bites. But we were using catfish that we found in the marina that
Yeah.
were dead and bloated. And I
Yeah.
cut them off. I just like cut the head off and put it on the thing. There was like a stretch of like maybe an hour where we had 4 or 5 bites.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Just shredding our lines.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was really sweet.
That would have been neat. But on that note, those are 2 great episodes that we're excited to share with you. And on top of that, I'd just like to remind you, pretty soon we're going to be able to tell you the dates, but it's the second half, right after the second half. Like once you, like halftime, if you did a football game, was there 15 minutes and a quarter?
Yeah.
Yes.
We were out there fighting for 15 minutes.
Yep,
That's
yep,
what
yep.
it is. We got 15 minutes left to glory. Okay. So if you were roughly 5 minutes into the third quarter of a football game, that's about when you'd be checking out the Green Bay Outdoors. So I can't say the
I'm
day.
sure if I followed that.
Good, because hopefully they don't. Because
If
I'm
you
not
can
actually allowed to
decipher
say. Yeah, if you can decipher that, that's roughly when the Green Bay Outdoors will be on the History
Nice.
Channel. But we're excited to share these adventures with you. The production in them is incredible, and the storyline and everything we're doing in them is, we're just really proud of it. And I've been putting together the rough edits on some episodes, and Brian and
Coming
AJ have
together
been
good.
making them actually look good. And I'm excited for it. We're excited to show it to you again the second half of this year. History Channel, check it out. On top of that, we have a new podcast right here every week. If you are just listening to it on Spotify, iTunes, however you get your podcasts, you can actually watch it on Carbon TV and YouTube, because we like to add a video content and pictures and all kinds of neat little things. Plus, you get to see our ugly faces. On top of that, we have our outdoor education series known as How-To videos you can find on our website, thegreenbayoutdoors.com. And while you're there, check out our online series, The Huntcast, the Green Bay Outdoors Huntcast, on our website or Carbon TV as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Stay green.